So how did leaving impact your marriage? You said your ex-husband now. Was that the straw that broke the camel's back? And how did you heal through that process as well?
Yeah, I believe it was because while you're on the same team, he wasn't ready to go there, and you've got family that are going to be disappointed with you. And often say when someone says that they're disappointed with you, that's far worse than someone being angry at you. And it's a huge part of where he was at. And all of a sudden, we didn't have that same alignment. And I was ready for growth. And so all of a sudden, when you come that way, you can't keep growing. And he wasn't at that stage. He wanted just to continue doing life as it was. It was comfortable for him in that place. So there become a much bigger gap. And I left the church in December of 2010, and then probably the April the next year that I moved out and we tried to have it work for us for 6 months, but we had just lost that common ground. And that's one of the biggest fears for a lot of people to even leave the church, because knowing what's going to happen with their relationship, because we have this kind of false security that while we're in it, we're going to be equally yoked and we're going to be able to do this together. And it's a real fear that, well, I might end up having to deal with relationship breakdowns as well. And that's too scary for a lot of people. And I understand that because that was a huge impact. But we were already having a lot of struggles before, just people didn't know about it, and that becomes more obvious then. And our marriage was one that people all wanted and looked up to and had no idea when it broke down that there was trouble because I was so good at wearing a mask and doing
Yeah.
that whole thing.
There's so much diverse experience you've got both in the family but also outside the family as well, and this awakening that you've got. How did that impact future relationships? We said in the introduction that you're now a fiance, but how did you navigate post-family life with new relationships and trying to find yourself as a woman as well?
Yeah, I kind of knew that I needed time to work on me. I was 40 years of age at the time, and it's like, who am I? Had no idea. I remember going to a workshop and talking about your ideal life, and I went up to the facilitator and said, I don't have an ideal life outside of what my ex-husband was. Like, it was about his life. And it was kind of a real, I have no idea. I haven't even thought about life outside of that. So learning who I was, you certainly become a really big part of it. And realizing if I just jump back into something, it would just be the same projection, but just a different screen. If I didn't look deeper and know who I want to become as the woman that I was. And I guess I had the responsibility of my children, and I had their support as much as a responsibility. And so for me, it was very much about not going each end of the pendulum and being really mindful of any of my choices because I was getting the right help to be able to do that. But taking the time, putting money, energy, and time into who I am. And that was probably one of the hardest things because women often of this church group don't do that. Like, it's about how we can serve and subservience, and it's all about everyone else's needs. Self-sacrifice is something to be really admired and praised. So to actually start putting time and money and energy into myself felt really selfish. When I did the program that I actually run now with my clients, when I signed up to do that, I remember getting a message back saying the first step of loving myself. And that was a really hard thing to hear. I remember being in tears because to be loving yourself was so against what we should have ever been. And it's a word that really struggles with a lot of my clients, and learning to change that to being self-honouring, being honouring to yourself, we can hear so much better. But thinking it was finally something I'd do for myself. If my children needed braces or if they needed something, I'd find the money and you'd make it happen. But to actually do something for just myself was massive. But not realising at the time that it was actually my kids that were going to all benefit along the way anyway. The more work I did on me, they all end up better off. So even in relationship, getting clear of who I was before entering a relationship was really big. But there's interesting how some of those things that turn up still, just last week, my fiance, he went to make the bed and I was still in the shower and I just called out and said, I'll do that when I'm finished. And he just stood there, he goes, but I can do it. Like, I don't have to do this. We can actually share this. Just the little things that I had believed that gave me worth, that I could run the household. We lived together for 12 months with our children together and decided after that we'd be better parents living separately and doing that. And that works beautifully for us. But there was a laundry chute in the house, and he used to joke that this miraculous laundry chute, he puts his clothes in, they turn up back in his cupboard. And it was kind of the thing going, and it was all going well until one day, we call it the laundry chute, broke. And, he'd come and he'd said to me, he said, hon, you won't need to worry about my ironing this week. I got in and got it done. And I went, did you do mine? Oh, no, I got mine done. And it was me realizing then, wow, I'm still thinking that that's my role, but hang on, he's doing it, but he's not doing mine. So what had happened, I'd been giving up the things that were essential to me before we'd met, having my baths, taking the time out for me, going for my walk. So I'd busied myself going back into relationship, being the good woman, that's his supporter, and I can do his washing and ironing and I can do it all. He never asked me to do any of that. And this is the interesting thing, never once did he ask me to do it. But my duty that I felt, or my obligation in being the good woman, had me turning up doing some of those things that I don't even stop to think about taking away the choice for him, but also me running myself ragged in order to make sure his needs are met.
You bring up a lot about gender stereotypes and gender roles, I guess, and this is why you've got such a powerful story of coming out of what sounds like an intense environment. And I wanted to really bring you on to share that story first, and also how you work through that, but also around this notion of patriarchy. And in the work that I do with men across the world, whether it's in social media stuff or the podcast, whether it's into one-to-one therapy, we're questioning this stuff all the time. What does it mean to be a man in 2023, for example? And what does it mean to be a dad? So I've got a little boy, he's 6 years old. What does it mean for me to be a dad so that he can grow up to be whoever he wants to be in a way that's empowering for him and strengths-based? And I think one of the things we need to question is this notion of what is patriarchy and how has that influenced us? So I'd love you to share a bit about that, how patriarchy has been a big part of your life, both within the group or in relationships. How has that evolved? Maybe with your dad? Did it come up with your dad as well? How has that shown up in your life?
There's a big part of it that we take on as duties. And I often say there's nothing wrong with doing things for people that you love. It's not about making it be, oh, this is my job, that's your job, this is my role. But I think the big part of it is being able to come in and have that touching point. And this is something that Russell and I now do within my lovely new relationship, is being able to go, is it still work okay for you to still continue doing these things? Or the gratitude. I'm really grateful that this is what you do. So it's just adding those extra things and checking in. That is this still working, that this is how we do life, that I'm doing the bins or you're doing this, and is that still okay? And we do that here with even my girls living with me, and having that in any kind of conversation with anyone. So coming back and just having those questions about whether this serves. And I think another big part of it for me, and an example of it, was going out to visit my son, and he was living with his cousin in a country farmhouse. And I'd go out and I would see my role as getting in and cleaning his house for him. Now, he's a fully grown male, 19, 20 years of age, and I take that on as my responsibility to do that for him. Now, this one time I was working with my therapist at the time, which was a beautiful way of me experiencing this and not just going into thinking that's my role. And that time of going, he was going to take his dogs for a run on the motorbike. And instead of being there cleaning the cobwebs or whatever it was that I would find something to do, actually stopping and being present with my son and going and doing that with him, rather than staying at home, cleaning his house, having him feel that he's not doing a good job. Like, I never even once considered that that could be a notion, and taking away his power, and instead go and enjoy. And I remember it being one of those real moments on the motorbike, stopping for a moment, and we watched the sun go down. Now, they were precious moments for him to see that his mum was present to him, not just cleaning the house and feeling that he's not doing a good job, but actually knowing that it's all about being connected, it's all about being present. So whether that's patriarchal, my scenario was certainly thinking that was my role, but whether that's culturally, whether it's society, within the religious group, whether it's within families, some of those programs we've just taken on because our parents have. Well, as science says 95% of the time we're doing what's habitual. So it's all come from those places. So it's stopping and going, actually, is this still the way we want to? Or how can we be that we're on a team together supporting each other, rather than it has to be either or? And I have had different clients that I've worked with who their belief system is about, if they keep a good home, then they'll keep their man. And it's that old story that this is where your worth is. Instead of us going, yep, we can be a mother, yes, we can be a wife, we can be a fiancé, we can be whatever, but also we're more than that. That's just a part of who we are. And if we can all just share the load and have the communication about what serves, and that's going to be changing all the time. Circumstances change in a household, but it's like going, well, how can I turn out to be the best version of me? And I think a big part of that is when we have the conversation, it's not taking it as criticism. Like, this is just how we can do better. this is something I want to talk about. This makes me feel this way, rather than you do this or you do that and that's not okay. I see it a lot even with my ex-husband. I didn't give him the opportunity to step up and be a different dad. That was my role, to be the mum. So I didn't even give him a chance to step up and do that and to cook. It was just my thing. And now since separation, the kids have learnt that their dad's an amazing cook and does great stuff. Well, I didn't even give them a chance to know that about their dad either. So, sometimes it's about we just do what we've always done. And I love that saying that it's not going to change if we keep doing the same thing. But we keep getting resentful or frustrated, and that doesn't serve anyone. And that's what I started to realize, doing all of these things to be the good woman, but there was resentment underneath it. Just discounts all of it.
As you're saying that, the word awareness comes up from your business. Is this awareness of there are different ways to be in the world. And as you rightly said, a lot of this is from what you just knew. And this is almost intergenerational. It's from your parents as well. You said your mum married into the group. But also in the phone conversation you had with the leader, I could sense some of this patriarchy coming out. Like, well, this is the way that it should be because it is the way it is. So why are you going against the grain as well? So it must be so empowering to go, you know what, now I'm in a place where I can recognize all this type of stuff. I can recognize what serves me, what doesn't serve me, and we can work out a new way of doing things.
Yeah, and I think that is the big key, is it can't change if I can't see it. So I have to be able to see it first. And that's being conscious, being able to see what it is. And then recognizing it, but then having the conversation around it. And being able to then, whether it's with my daughters, whether it's with only my family or friends or my fiance, is being able to acknowledge that, celebrate it and go, wow. Even when that shower thing happened and him making the bed, having the conversation with him going, wow, I almost thought that was my role there. But I think that patriarchal, it's putting that first. And I could have so easily fallen back into that and be the supporter of Russell's pathway in that. And I was that for some time until I realised I've got to step up in my own self as well. Really good. I can continue to support him, but not at the cost of myself anymore. So it's not about not supporting people, but if we're doing it at the cost of our own vision and what we're here to do, because, I've got to answer that calling. And then having the respect of each other to be able to work with that. And that's one of the things often in patriarchal, it is about this is my part and you come along to support me, rather than hang on, what do you need and what's for you to do in this world? Because I believe we're all here to make a difference, to learn to be kinder to ourselves, to others and the planet. And what are we doing and how can we support each other to keep doing that?
And I can imagine your kids would look up to you now and see the growth in you. And have they said anything? Have they noticed anything? Have they talked about your personal growth story with them?
Oh, look, absolutely. They've been, my greatest supporters, my biggest teachers. And that has been a really big part of it. One daughter and I, we've got an idea of a business together called Be Kinder Co, because us learning about being kinder to ourselves first and then to others instead of the cost to others. And certainly, I don't know how many times my youngest daughter has said to me, oh, Mum, I'm so glad you've done the work, because this is not how you would have done it once. Because I didn't know any other way to be a martyr and to be the pleaser. And in that, there's a lot of fear that's driving that. So for them to give each other permission to be able to change this. And, my daughter graduated from uni. In the old world, that wouldn't have happened. Would have been married young, had children young, and that may have been her choice. But the thing is, she got to have a choice. She went back as a mature student, did her studies, and did it differently. Now, that's happening more and more with women, and it may not be a big deal for a lot of the church women. But in our family, it wouldn't have happened. And for her to go travelling at 20 and get new experiences, it would have been her worth. And she often gets asked all the time, well, have you got a boyfriend? That was the big thing about getting married and having a boyfriend. That's your worth. You have value then if you have someone in your world. Whereas for her, it was about expanding herself, doing all that. And then when she likes who she is, meeting the person who can match that. And at the moment, it's her learning that path. And my son, I can have real conversation with him now. It's not about me just hearing what he needs. And I will say to him, look, some of these conversations, they're going to be hard because you're not used to this. In our family, we've always done the silent treatment, or we just don't talk the hard stuff. So I can't do that anymore. And if it's something I'd say to my girls, I also will make sure I say to you. Some of that you may not always want to hear, but I'm your mum. And if I can't show you this, doing it differently, then I'm not doing my job. I don't need to fix it, but I just need to bring it to your awareness. Yeah. Then you do with it wherever you want to do with that.
I really like that. And for all the dads listening, any guy listening out there who might be in a relationship like this or knows someone who's in a relationship like this, or maybe it's their mum's who's done something incredibly different and changed her pathway. It's reflecting on that, recognizing that, and going up and having some deeper conversations about new pathways and about changing old habits as well, and being part of this new collaboration as well. It's not just our kids looking up to their parents and saying, this is what mum and dad does, this is what I've got to do. It's about, well, how can we do things differently? How can we grow, and how can we learn, and how can we as kids support our parents and vice versa as well. I think it's a really powerful point that you've got there, and a powerful journey